Whoa, 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 whoa.
What's the problem?
This
What's the matter?
This is not a Jet show.
So what?
So how about this?
Manning lobs it. Burris alone. Touchdown, New York.
Oh, come on. I don't want to hear this.
Why not? Super Bowl champions.
Doesn't matter. I just don't want to hear it.
What do you want to hear?
How about some Mets?
Hey, if I can find one good thing that happened to the Mets, here we go.
Home run. Mike Piazza. And the Mets lead 3-2.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be, I'm sorry. We all can't be like the Yankees.
Oh, speaking of.
This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly.
No. God, I can't believe I just said that. All right, well, listen. How about a little Nets?
If I have to.
Kid, the jumper to win it. He got it.
I can't take it. I can't take it anymore. It's been a second. I can't take it. How about some Knicks?
Oh, yeah, big spenders. Can't win a playoff.
Fair enough.
Houston pops out up top, down the lane, running jumper off the front rim, and in.
I guess we should talk a little hockey, no?
People even watch hockey anymore?
They watch the Rangers.
Well, if you have the Rangers, you gotta have some balance.
Yeah, no, they didn't have YouTube in the 80s.
All right, let's get the show started.
Here we are, polar opposites. Hello and welcome to the Polar Opposites podcast on polaropposites.podbean.com. We are also on Spreaker live right now, Spreaker.com. We are also on the iTunes, so you can just subscribe and download it directly. And you can follow us on Twitter at PolarOpposites1. I'm Matt Stevens. Alongside me, as always,
It's Craig Moffitt.
and Craig.
Matty, how you feeling, man?
I feel good.
It's been 2 weeks. I had a freaking bad cold last week.
Yeah, you got kids. That's the thing about having kids, man. With kids comes disease. And I don't mean I mean just like colds and crap like that.
Well, the problem is, in general, is that daycare centers are like Petri dishes. Man.
Yes.
They just
Brutal.
You just catch it really fast.
Brutal.
And then the worst part is like when the kid feels better, but you don't.
Well, of course,
And then
because
you
the
gotta
kid's going to bounce back quicker than you.
And then the kid, you got to chase the kid around the house. You have no energy to do this.
Daddy, why aren't you playing with me? Because you're a little freaking disease carrier and you got me sick.
I'm just like,
I'd be the worst father ever. Thank God I don't have kids. And everybody agrees with that.
yeah, me too.
Thank God.
It's a plus.
The world is happier that I don't have kids. So where we're going to start today, we're going to do a little baseball. We're going to do a little Mets, a little Yankees. We're going to do a little World Series. We'll do our predictions so that you can bet against us and win money. We'll do a little Week 7.
But it is pretty alarming that nobody really cares as much.
Oh my God! It's amazing how now we live in New York, so I'm sure Houston is super excited. I'm sure Boston was very happy, and not half, Met fans were super happy. Other than those three people, everybody else wanted to see Yankees Dodgers.
I believe it. And it would have been a huge ratings thing if they had.
They are going to get crushed in the You could have added probably 3 points to their ratings just having the Yankees in alone.
Yeah.
So anyway, why don't we start there then? We'll start. So then we also got polar, bipolar, and then of course closing time, where we're actually going to talk a little bit about what baseball is talking about doing in that, not here. We'll get into it there. You'll see what we think then. Let's do the Mets first.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, we'll talk about the Yankees.
I didn't get you anything.
Well, no, but we'll talk about the Yankees. We'll do a little moratorium. We'll talk about the last 2 games of the series, and that'll pop us right into the World Series.
Okay.
So why don't we get the Mets done here? I'll just say what I have to say real quick, and then I'll let you sort of expound.
Go for it.
I am super excited for this signing for the Mets, mostly because the sort of openness in which the Mets went into the process. When Collins retired, and I'm doing air quotes because he didn't actually retire, you heard names came out, the batting coach, Joey Cora, the names everybody's saying, right? But you didn't really hear this guy. There wasn't too much pub around this guy. So they must have had a real open mind because everything you heard from the Mets was they wanted to be Kevin Long. They wanted it to be Kevin Long. They wanted to be Kevin Long. So then they come in with this guy, and I think this is a great signing for the Mets because if you are going to have a team built around young starting pitching, then why not have one of the best pitching coaches in the league who was the captain of one of the best starting rotations and bullpens in the game as your manager?
I like this. I like the hiring a lot. To be honest, it kind of came out of left field because all I kept reading all weekend was
Kevin Long,
Manny Acta,
Joey Cora until he got signed by the Red Sox.
Then they had interviewed Joe McEwing. They had interviewed a couple of other guys. But the good news was like
Super Joe.
But I'll give you a perfect example of like why I like this hiring. It's a break from the norm. And what I mean by that is that the Mets could have gone the safe route and hired Kevin Long, who has already been a hitting coach for the Mets, so he's a little bit used to New York. But at the same time, it would have just been safe for me. It wouldn't have been like an outside the box type of thing. Those are the hirings that get you excited. And the thing is, when I heard, I think it was on Friday, that the finalists were Acta and Long, I pretty much was like, well, basically then it's Long, because why would they hire Acta? Acta has been a poor manager for 2 teams,
Right.
Let alone,
Right. How's he getting interviews?
And
Like,
quite
what's
frankly,
happening?
I don't know if he was he the bench coach or the hitting coach for the Mariners or something like that?
Yeah.
Which, again, leaves a lot to be desired because the Mariners are a very mediocre baseball team.
Exactly.
So, that being said, though, Callaway just kind of comes out of left field for me because I heard his name being mentioned, but I never really heard how serious the Mets were, and then he wound up making him an offer.
Right.
The main reason why you like the hiring is it's an outside-the-box hire. He has no loyalties to this pitching staff whatsoever as far as I'm concerned. So if he wants to say, hey, Steven Matz, if you're not performing or whatever, you're going to go to the bullpen because I need a starter every 5th day.
Yeah.
Same thing with Matt Harvey. There's no loyalty to the pitching staff right now.
No.
So absolutely none. So if he feels that Matz is better suited to the bullpen, he could put Matz in the bullpen if he wants to. Same thing with Harvey. If Harvey's getting rocked, he's going to the bullpen.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. It was different last year because you did have some injuries, but at the same time, under Terry, and even under Dan Worthen, I felt like there was such a loyalty to these guys that it's like, yeah, well, we have to put him back in because he's Matt Harvey,
Right,
and all that stuff. The second reason, pretty much why you like the hire, is besides the fact it's just a new philosophy. It's a new voice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Mets have needed. They needed somebody that was not kind of falling into line like Long or all these other guys. Callaway comes with him just a new voice, maybe a fresh vision on where the team is headed going into 2018. Now, look, at the end of the day, a manager is a manager, but you also have to give him the talent. So while he can be a good manager and you like the fact on paper he's a terrific manager, at the end of the day, the Mets have to now build the roster to give him the best chance to win. And I'll just leave it at that. Because I think, like I said, smart hire, good hire. Anytime you can pluck somebody from the tree of Terry Francona, I think is a positive. Because that's the other reason why I like it. He's coming from a winning pedigree with Francona from 2 years in Cleveland, and all that. And I think he even won a World Series. Not as a coach, I think more as a player, though. I think it was with Anaheim. I don't remember too well. I don't know if he was like under Socha temporarily. But again, overall, it's a solid hiring. Now it's just a case of building the roster to give him the best chance to win.
Now, because we are polar opposites,
of course,
we have to look at the downside.
Mm-hmm.
And the downside is simple. One, it's an unknown, right? Because he's never been a manager as far as I know. And two, the rate that pitching coaches become good managers is not that high. It's very rare that you can think of, like, I think Bud Black might be the only guy. And most people wouldn't even consider him a great manager, although he is a good manager.
Well, people will argue about Bud Black was when he coached the Padres, they weren't a very good team.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. The Rockies were excellent this year. So that's not what I'm arguing. I'm saying that he's the only one I can think of. Now, again, that means nothing, right? In the grand scheme of things, that means nothing. What I would say, though, is if I'm him, if I'm this person, I would definitely consider keeping Kevin Long as my hitting coach.
Well, that's what I think they want to do, but now the Nationals have requested to interview Long for
as
their
the
manager job. Now, I don't know if he'll get it.
Why would you take that job? You're going to get fired in a day.
We'll get to that.
One wrong move.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but overall, like, here's the thing. Because it's an unknown, because it's not Terry Francona, because it's not Mike Socha, right? We have nothing really to talk about except for his work as the pitching coach of the Cleveland Indians, which if you look over the last couple years, the Cleveland Indians staff has been very, very good. Not just starting, but also relieving, and guys who may have pitched even better than people thought they were. Mm-hmm. So, look, I mean, this guy managed Keuchel, right? So, like, and
yeah. And
so
I was actually reading something really interesting in that position players in general may not be warm to the idea of hiring a pitching coach because his focus might solely be on pitching.
Right.
Now it becomes a case of who do you hire to round out the bench? The bench coaches or the hitting coaches. Now, the Mets really do want to keep Long. I think that's been pretty much made public over the past couple of weeks. Is he going to
be the pitching coach? Is that how that works?
Who? Callaway?
Yeah.
I don't
right?
know.
He'll have somebody do that, right?
I think he'll have some input, but I think he'll be too focused on overseeing the entire team.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So right now, I mean, there's been a couple of guys thrown out there. Sandy Alomar Jr. has been mentioned, which could help him. And it's funny because even though he didn't get the job, Manny Acta is actually being considered as like a possible bench coach. But again, no one really knows
that guy's going to bring his own guys in, right? I mean,
right now, no one knows who's going to round out the staff because he's kind of an enigma. Like we don't really know who he knows,
right?
And so to speak. So listen, at the end of the day, it's a solid hire by the Mets. They did a good job so far. This has actually been a decent offseason for the Mets for this, and then moving the team to Syracuse. Right?
Oh yeah, they're 2 for 2.
So you got to be
as long as it has nothing to do with the roster or the players, the Mets do okay.
But here's the other thing too. For example, again, going back to the loyalty thing, there's no loyalty towards David Wright. You call him, you talk to him, but at the end of the day, it's like you need to build a team. You got to build.
But that's not the manager, right? That's the GM.
You got to
the loyalty to David Wright is the GM.
But I think he's also got to tell. I mean, I think you kind of need a guy that can just basically say, like, listen, I love David Wright, but at the end of the day, he can't play.
No, I understand that, but that's not the manager. That's got to be on Alderson to bring somebody in to play the damn position.
An everyday third base.
Yeah.
Not just like
go out and get Todd Frazier.
Not a band. I would take Todd Frazier.
Go sign Todd Frazier to a 5-year, $100 million contract. 5 years, 75. Whatever you want to say. Right? He might take less to play for the Mets because it's home. So maybe he does that. Maybe, I guess the same could be said for the Phillies, but it's a little less home. So, go do that. And then that will send a message to Met fans and to even David Wright that you can still come back, but you can't play third base. He could play first base. He probably can't throw from third anyway anymore. So what are we even talking about?
Would you consider, let's say you're the Mets.
Yes.
Would you consider offering Wright a position as one of the coaches?
No, he has to retire first.
If he were to retire,
sure, absolutely. I don't know if he would want to do that. My thing is that the thing for David, it's like, and I hate to use this analogy, but it's the only thing I can think of. It's like with a heroin addict reaching rock bottom. Like David Wright hasn't.
This is the best analogy.
It's actually. I was just watching The Wire, so no, I'm kidding.
It's very rare. No one, I don't think, ever compared David Wright to heroin.
Of course not. Which is why it works, though, right? Because he is so.
There's a first time for everything.
He's so invested in coming back that it's become where he might be the only one who doesn't see that he probably can't. Do you understand Do you understand the parallel?
Message to program directors: if you don't hire us, then you don't get these type of really sick analogies.
Yeah, but am I wrong about the analogy? It's like you see a kid. Have you ever known anybody hooked on drugs? Really hooked on drugs?
No.
Okay, I have, and they're the only ones who don't realize that they have the biggest problem in the world, and until they realize it, they can't get help. Right? Because they're not going to believe you.
It just keeps coming back.
Same thing for him.
It's keep coming back to every year. It's going to be the arms look feeling good, and then he goes out there, and then the shoulder falls out.
He's had 5 surgeries on his neck. People, I'm sorry, you don't come back from that. You just don't. I'm sorry, and I'm not. Listen, I'm not telling David. I'm not telling him to quit. I'm not telling him that. But at some point, you got to read the writing on the wall. To the Yankees.
Yep.
Okay. Look.
I don't know why we're calling this a moratorium when there's really nothing to be negative about. The team is definitely in the right.
It's like a wrap up, right? It's a wrap up. Mm-hmm. We're wrapping up the season.
I, for one, was stunned that they didn't win.
I wasn't, to be honest with you. I definitely wasn't stunned they didn't win Game 6.
I'd called the Yankees in 6.
I will say that we really need to. And this has nothing. This is for both teams. I'm not saying this is a Yankee thing at all, right? This is me as a fan watching these games. Either Fox has to take down the box, or we have to have electronic strike zones. I know the box isn't 100%, but you got to figure if they put that box up there, it's got to be 95%, 97%.
I'd hope,
right? You would hope, right? Hey, here's the thing: at least outside and inside is exactly what it should be because that's just the plate. Now, height relative, when you're talking about Judge being up there compared to Altuve, yeah, it can be off a little bit. But there were some pitches, and I'm talking both sides here, man, that changed counts. It was in Game 6. I want to say it was the top of the 5th. It might have been the top of the 4th. I don't remember. There's runners on first and second with nobody out, right? Aaron Hicks is up at bat. It's a 3-1 pitch. The ball, Craig, I swear to God, is like 3 inches off the box. Umpire calls it a strike. This is outside. Umpire calls it a strike. Then it goes to 3-2. He's on base. That's bases loaded. Nobody out. Do you understand that? I mean, and that's
here's
both
the thing.
sides.
We saw calls like that all year long.
I know, but that's my
I don't
point.
know if it's just the umpire, how his strike zone is. I don't know. I mean, but we've seen it all year that some of the strike calls were questionable. I mean,
I'm saying that borderline pitches are inconsistent. And so if you're giving everybody the pitch you gave Verlander in that inning, then that's one thing. I can be annoyed about it, but at least everybody's getting. But not everybody's getting it. Not everybody's getting all the time because there's no way you can be that consistent. It's impossible. Yeah. So that aside, they need to fix that. Either take down let me go back to being ignorant, right? Let me go back to it being conjecture, right? Because you really didn't have any idea because the camera over the pitcher's shoulder is not directly high home plate. Right. So you didn't have a real idea. You lived in ignorance, and it was okay. Because you could argue about it, but nobody really knew. Sure. Just send me back to ignorance land, okay? Let me be a Trump supporter while I watch baseball, okay? Sorry, I threw that in. That was me.
You couldn't, yeah,
I
just
apologize.
couldn't
I apologize. As far as the Yankees losing, they need, and this is more of a wrap-up on them, they need a couple guys strewn through that lineup who are like singles hitters. You know what I mean? Guys who have 380 on base percentage, who might bat 300, but maybe 10 to 15 homers. You know what I mean? They need that type of guy. They need a guy to get on base. Because I'll tell you, it doesn't matter. And they need a couple guys who strike out less. Right. There's a lot of strikeouts in that lineup. Now, I can live with Judge striking out 210 times a year if it's just Judge. But I can't deal with a bunch of guys striking out 150 times. I can't. Because you're not making enough contact to get runs in. You can't have Greg Bird thrown out at home 3 times. 3 times. Okay, that's on the third base coach to me sometimes. Now, that was just a great play the other night. I mean, the kid, nobody else in the world goes home on that play, right? Did you see the play where he was going to his left and he caught it and he wheeled around and threw home? Not many third basemen are going home there. They're just not. They're going to first. They're going to take the out, right? He goes home. They need a couple guys. And listen, the team's going to be very different. Todd Frazier's not going to be on this team. There's a very good chance that either Brett Gardner, Jacoby Ellsbury, Chase Headley, 2 of those 3 won't be on the team. So the team's going to be markedly different. There's even a thought that maybe even Castro won't be on the team.
Yeah, he was really non-existent.
And that I chalk that more up to him being injured most of the year and just you go up against good pitching. If you're not on, it's going to make you look terrible. But his fielding was the bigger problem for me.
You know, you take into account this year that the Yankees were pretty much playing with house money. I think you can agree with that.
I mean, to a certain point. Okay. Once they made all the trades, to me, the house money went away. But
that's fair.
I get what you're saying.
That's very fair. What do you like about the team going into next year? Obviously, Judge and Sanchez. Didi Gregorius I thought was great this year.
Fantastic.
Okay, it's probably turning. And, and again, man, I was talking about this the other day. Cashman is
he's a kind of a genius, right?
Thank you. And that's what I've been saying for a while because
I'm a Cashman guy.
Here's the thing about Cashman, okay? Not only does he make smart moves, he figures out a way to get teams to take less from him to get a star player. For example, the Sonny Gray deal, what Oakland got were basically 2 guys off of major injuries. Caprillion had Tommy John,
and the kid
and
with the
Fowler
knee.
had the injury. And outside of Jorge Mateo, that was it. So right away, you have 2 guys that you don't know what you're going to get when they come back from these injuries. Maybe they're studs, maybe they're not.
And as somebody who follows the minor league system, Mateo had half a year. He was really overachieved.
For Robertson and Frazier, again, he got a package. They got a package around Blake Rutherford, who a lot of people thought was a good prospect, but not a great prospect. Especially when you had, Frazier and you have Gleyber Torres and you have all these other guys. I forgot the other. I think Andujar is one.
Yeah,
Miguel Andujar and the
Justice Sheffield.
Yeah. So you have they are loaded right now, and that's something. And again, that's a testament to Cashman. Now, so that's part of it. Now next year, again, you just said it. Is Gardner going to be back? Ellsbury's contract, I think, still makes him a bit immovable,
It's
but
about
you never
3
know.
years, $25 million. If the Yankees eat $50 million of that, somebody will take him.
Yeah.
Right? Like, wouldn't you think? And I don't buy the idea that there's no such thing. Like, there's no such thing to me as an unmovable contract. If you take enough of the money, a team's going to take a player, and he's not a bad player.
Jacoby Ellsbury is a good player.
Just not for the money he's being paid.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, he wasn't as good with the Yankees as he was with the Red Sox, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's a bad player.
Well, also think about it. If you're a team and you're paying him $7 million a year, isn't he a good player at $7 million?
He can hit, he can steal bases, and he's a very good leadoff hitter.
I
know he didn't do leadoff. He wasn't really a leadoff hitter for the Yankees. He was more in the middle of the order guy.
The only thing he doesn't have is an arm. That's it. But a lot of outfielders don't have great arms. Like, you deal with it. So so those guys are going to be gone. Well, some of them are. Like, I think Frazier's gone because I don't think they can afford to re-sign him if they want to be under the cap, under the luxury tax.
Mm-hmm.
I think 2 of the 3 between Ellsbury, Gardner, and Headley, 2 of those 3 will be gone.
Okay.
If I had to choose, now there's a chance they keep Chase Headley and make him like the backup third baseman, first baseman, DH, because he can play both. And then you give either Gleyber Torres a shot at third, or you move Castro to third, or maybe Andujar wins a third base job. But I don't think Chase Headley has an everyday position on this team if he's on the team next year, which is why I think they'll try and move him, because I think actually right now is the best time to move him. He's got 1 year left. It's $14 million. He was really good for the Yankees this year, and he was really good in the playoffs. He was the only one who hit the last 3 games of the series.
Moving forward, your bullpen is pretty much set with Robertson for another year. Obviously, Chapman, Betances.
Don't be surprised if Betances gets traded.
And that's what I was thinking, too, because I noticed Girardi really kind of soured on him pretty much to the point where he wasn't going to use him in a big spot. He didn't trust him.
Well, how could you?
So
8-0 lead. You walk 2 guys on 8 pitches.
And not to mention, look, Chad Green is a terrific long reliever. Mm-hmm. Who else is on? Warren's pretty solid as well in the bullpen. Canely they still have. So
and Canely's under control. He's not like one of those big money guys.
So the Yankees are pretty stocked in the bullpen, and on top of that, in the rotation, I don't think Tanaka's going to opt out. I'd be very surprised if he opts out at this point. But he did have a strong,
he had a great postseason, dude.
So he may use that as leverage. The only problem is that may backfire.
Here's what Tanaka has. Here's what he has to decide what he wants to do. Right. This is what he has to decide. Does he want more money over less years, or less money per year, but more money over more years? Do you understand what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, like, say he opts out. He has 3 years left on the deal. If he opts out, right, and somebody offers him a 5-year, $100 million contract, that's $20 million a year, where I think he's making 26 with the Yankees. But he gets 2 more years.
Yeah.
So what would you rather do? And that's what he's going to have to decide. I think he's going to opt out. I really do. He was so good, dude. He was so good.
So let's take the hypothetical he doesn't. And he returns for next year. So you have Tanaka.
Yeah.
You have Sonny Gray.
Yes.
You have Severino. You will most likely get Sabathia back, because I think he will re-sign for a year.
It's going to have to be super cheap, though. That's the thing. Will he do that?
But then I ask myself, will a team come out of nowhere and offer him a couple of years?
And if you're think about it this way. If you're the Cleveland Indians, right? Why wouldn't you throw money at Sabathia? He was better than any of the 3 or 4 starters they threw out against the Yankees.
I'll be very blunt. If I'm the Mets, I look into try to bring in CC Sabathia.
You're just going to have to pay him more money than the Yankees. I think he will take less money to play with the Yankees. I don't think he would do that for any other team. But you also got to remember Jordan Montgomery, who pitched really well for the Yankees this year as the 5th starter. He won, I think it was 12 or 14 games. I mean, they got a lot going on.
So right now, I mean, listen, the Yankees are going to be in contention for a long time. We pretty much know that at this point, especially because you have players coming up through the system.
Yeah.
So it's not like you may lose a player here and there, but you have a guy ready to replace them.
And that's, when people talk about the Yankees and Mets and the Mets in 15, everyone thought they were going to be here the year after and the year after. And the problem for the Mets isn't that they don't have good players. It's that they don't have tremendous depth in their minor league system as far as position players. And when you stretch the pitching depth as much as it got stretched with all the injuries that they had, nobody has that much depth, right? Just nobody does, because no team has that many major league ready players. It's impossible. But the Yankees have a ton of depth in their position players. I mean, think about it. Didi Gregorius, Gary Sanchez, Aaron Hicks, Jacoby Ellsbury, and Greg Bird, right? All missed at least a month of the season this year, and the Yankees won 91 games.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. I mean,
But that's what I said, though. They're set up for the long haul, and that's really what it.
Yeah.
That's really what it is going to be moving forward. Because then you're going to have Clint Frazier coming up, and you're going to have Gleyber Torres and Justice Sheffield. So
and that's the thing. Gleyber Torres might be the best hitter out of all of them.
Yeah.
Like Gleyber Torres, it should be the 2 hitter for the Yankees. I don't think the Yankees will have Aaron Judge batting second next year. I think Aaron Judge should be batting 4th or 5th, to be completely honest with you, to maximize his RBI potential. Right? I mean, if he hits 52 home runs batting 5th, you're going to add another 20 RBIs to his total.
right.
So why wouldn't you do that? But look, it's going to be a lot of change. It's going to be weird because it's going to be the same team, but it's not, right? It's going to be the same team because you're going to have Didi and Judge and Sanchez and Bird and those guys. But it's not going to be the same team because some of the guys you may have grown to like Gardner and Frazier and Betances may not be here. They just may not.
Which leads us into the World Series.
Yes.
Pretty much Houston and Los Angeles will get started tonight in L.A.
Yeah.
Kershaw for the Dodgers, Keuchel for the Astros.
The deflated World Series.
You know that took a lot of wind out of
Fox
people's
just went
sails.
like this. Fox after Game 7 was like, "Yay, the Astros won the World Series."
And it is sad but true. It's
Sorry,
sad but
guys.
true. I mean, that's a fact. Because
Everybody hates the Yankees, but everybody wants them in the World Series because they bring eyes to the TV, kids. Half of the Yankee fans aren't going to tune in to a minute of the World Series.
No.
More than half, I would gather. More than half. True baseball fans will. We will. I'll tune in.
I'll probably tune in a little bit.
I'm not saying my eyes are going to be
I
glued
might
to
watch
it.
it. I might watch it more on replay because
Well, yeah, it's easier. It's
Yeah,
10
it's-
minutes or whatever.
exactly.
It's done. So who do you like? Let's just do. I mean, we don't need to break it down. It's been broken down
Yeah.
to a fine powder. We don't need to do that crap. But we like to give predictions on this show, not because we bet we're terrible, and not because we think we're good at it. We do it so that you, the listener, can have a chance to go lay some coin down, maybe in Vegas, maybe online or something, and win money when you bet against us.
here's what I'll say. Obviously, the weakest link of the Astros is the bullpen. I mean, we pretty much know that at this point. There's nothing to be excited about, and when the Yankees got to the Astros bullpen, the game was pretty much over.
And you
At
can't
that
have
point.
McCullers and
Morton pitching
and those
every
guys
day.
pitch in the
'Cause
bullpen.
you need them for the rotation.
Exactly.
Okay. That's where the Dodgers' strength is to an extent. They have a strong bullpen with Kenley Jansen and Cingrani and a few other guys, and not to mention their rotation, because I still don't trust Morton and McCullers as the 3-4 outside of Keuchel and Verlander. I think at least with the Dodgers, you have Kershaw, you have Darvish, you have Rich Hill, who's been very strong. I think who's their fourth? Is it Maeda?
Yeah.
Is it Kenta
No, he
Maeda?
picked out of the bullpen. It was
He pitched out of the bullpen?
What's his name?
I
The other
can't-
kid.
I can't remember who it is.
The big kid. The big white kid, right?
That's like half the league.
Yeah, that's true. I apologize.
That's half the league and half the NBA.
No, come on. That's not half the NBA.
So basically, at the end of the day, it's really going to come down. Listen, they have plenty of strengths in hitting. The Astros have Correa. They have Altuve, the MVP, most likely. And, Beltran. And then, McCann's been pretty quiet, but he came through in a clutch in a big spot. The Dodgers have Corey Seager, and they have Jock Peterson. They have Puig. They have Justin Turner, and all those guys. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I'm going to I think the Astros bullpen will be ultimately what does them in, to the point where they're going to have to exhaust starters. So I'll say Dodgers in 6.
I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. I can't choose I can't root for the Astros to win. I just
beat your
can't.
team?
Yeah, and I know people are like, why don't you want a team to beat you to win the World Series? Because I don't want them celebrating again. The one thing that bums me out about this World Series, and I totally get it, and I'm not blaming them, I'm not blaming anybody, is that Curtis Granderson's not on the roster.
He actually isn't he? I
No,
thought it was just
'cause
he's not in the lineup tonight.
Seager. The
okay.
last
I thought
thing
that-
I read
I'm
was that
sorry. I thought that
Seager's
was
on.
today.
Seager's on and Grandy's off.
That's disappointing.
Which sucks, right? Like, I mean, listen, he'll still get a ring and whatnot, but, like, it's just not the same.
Well, you never know if there's an injury or maybe they want to tweak it. At
I
the
mean,
last
I
minute.
guess, but still, that's the only thing that sucks for me. So I'm going to go the Dodgers in 5.
Dodgers in 5,
Screw you, Houston.
which means Houston will win in 7.
Absolutely. Enjoy it, everybody. Little do NFL Week 7,
Let's do a little NFL Week 7.
and then we'll do polar bipolar.
Sure. Once again, I just find that the level of play is just
Brutal, man. Oh, my
First
God.
of all, the fact that the friggin' Bears won a game with only 5 first downs
is amazing.
is unreal, and only 4 completed passes.
But the Bears win game. Didn't they win a game against? Wasn't that the famous Cardinal game where he's after. They are who we thought they were. Wasn't that where the Bears had? They just had a bunch of like special teams touchdowns, and they had 5 first downs.
So here's the problem. The problem is that we can't judge Mitch Trubisky as being good because he's only completing 4 passes a game.
Yes.
So while they're just a brutal team offensively,
they're still winning more games than the Giants.
But they're still winning games, which is just alarming. And that says a lot more about Carolina too, because I'm getting really sick of hearing about Carolina because Cam Newton has a great game and everybody jumps on the bandwagon.
Sure.
Okay. And then he has a game like he had on Sunday against a bad team. They're a bad team.
Yeah. Okay.
And all of a sudden it's like, I don't know. He's so hot and cold. And the thing is, they have the talent. It's not like, their talent's not as good as a lot of maybe a few other teams in the league, but they have quality players on that offense.
Let's be fair. The biggest problem the NFL has right now, and I honestly don't know how to fix it, but the biggest problem they have right now is there's actually not enough practice time. And you can tell when you watch the games, there's not enough practice time. You have guys false starting all over the place. You have guys running wrong routes, like when there's the throw and there's nobody there, and the quarterback's like, and he does the thing like, you're supposed to go left instead of right. And the guy's like, no, I'm supposed to go right instead of left. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ, can we figure this out, please? It doesn't seem like there's enough practice time. Does that fair? I mean, tackles. Tackling, Craig. For the guys are like bouncing off tackles like there's nobody there.
For the record, the problem is training camps start too late because you have July and then all of a sudden you get the Hall of Fame game. So those two teams have already not practiced nearly enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you're going into games like left and right. So you're going into 4 preseason games, and we're not the first people to complain about the preseason and how many games are in it, but we sure as hell won't be the last. And the problem is he's right to an extent because you're preparing for a game, but you're not really you're not practicing. You're probably not practicing enough to an extent because players aren't during the preseason. Pretty much the stud players don't practice as much. We can agree because no one wants to risk injury, right?
And they definitely don't play.
Yeah. So when you make mini camps voluntary, that's a loss of practice time. I'm not saying mini camps should be mandatory. I'm just saying when you make them voluntary, you lose practice time. You lose the rapport a quarterback can get with receivers. Defensive lines being on the same unit. You miss the time to gel an offensive line together so they don't false start, so they know one knows exactly where the other one is going. That's becoming an issue, and it's now reflecting on the field because pretty much I'd say half of those games on Sunday were a disaster.
Think about it this way. You ready? The Rams, the Saints, the Vikings, the Eagles, the Titans are all in first place.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody told me that was going to happen, maybe the Vikings. Maybe. But not with the Packers in that division.
The only other team I'd give you is the Titans because a lot of people like the Titans.
They did, but nobody picked the Eagles. No. Everybody was picking the Cowboys or the Giants, right? Nobody picked the Eagles. Yeah. And now here's the other thing, too, right? Because the Eagles, they had injuries, right, especially their secondary, but they hadn't had any crushing injuries, right? None of their great players were really injured. Well, they lost Hicks, the linebacker, and they lost the left tackle yesterday. Yeah. And they're talking about Will Beatty replacing him. Let me tell you this, guys. The Giants could use a left tackle more than anything left in the world. And Will Beatty was on the team last year. Do you think he – come on, okay? Now listen, anything can happen, and, unicorns and candy canes do exist, but
then what's making it worse is that the teams aren't prepping enough for Thursday, and you're getting crappy play there too. Because here's the thing: while I enjoyed the Raider game and Chief game last Thursday, don't get me wrong, but my gut tells me if the Chiefs had a few more days to prepare for the Raiders,
they would have
destroyed the Raiders. Okay, let's just call it because that defense does not play that bad.
There's also another thing that needs to be addressed, and I think this is something the NFL really needs to look at. Penalty should not be indiscriminate. It shouldn't just be you committed a penalty, so you're going to get a flag. It happened a bunch in that Raider-Chief game where the play was always going to the left, and some guy 100 yards down the field on the right touched the receiver in the rib, and it tickled him, and he giggled, and the ref threw a flag when it had nothing to do with the play. And the NFL needs to get to the point where these ridiculous, like there's a penalty in the Giant game, right? It was this past weekend where B.J. Goodson got called for pass interference. It was one in the 50 frickin' plays that was played on the goal line where the Giants just kept doing penalties. The ball was snapped. Russell Wilson drops back 3 steps and throws the ball over the middle, right? while he's throwing the ball, B.J. Goodson is contacting the receiver. The ball is not going to that receiver. You can't even see him. Right. The receiver, you can't even see him. Okay? He's so small that he couldn't even see him. Flag. But that guy was never involved in the play. And I'm not just saying this is the Giants. This is everybody. Well, and it happens on kick and punt returns. It's crazy. Well, so many penalties.
Listen, when the refs call pass interference, I'd say 75% of the time. They only do it because the receiver overreacts on the call.
Well, because you can do it every time.
What infuriates me more than anything sometimes about pass interference calls is when, even if the guy wasn't interfered with, he would have had no shot at that ball. That ball's gone 10 yards past where the receiver is. And outside of a little contact, you're telling me that guy, I have to see for certain if that guy can make that catch before I'm going to call pass interference. And if that ball's being sailed 15 yards past where the receiver is headed, he's not making that catch.
But also, they called illegal contact the other day on a defensive player. Do you know how much hand fighting goes? Isn't then all contact with the receiver illegal past 5 yards? Shouldn't you not be allowed to touch them at all? Both sides, right? But listen, we don't want to get bogged down in that discussion because we can sit here all day. And
now we get a true barn burner for a Thursday night game between the Ravens and the Dolphins.
But let me also say this, and I don't know if you saw the play in the Giant-Seahawk game with Landon Collins in the end zone.
I didn't see it. I read about something with him, and they both came down with the ball.
The NFL is lost, okay? They are lost. This should have just been an incomplete pass or whatever. But the fact that the jet play went to the Patriots...
But that's what I'm saying. We don't even know what a catch is. We don't know what a catch is.
Well, because the guy didn't come down with the ball. That's the problem, right? He did. He had it for a second. He hits the ground. It comes loose. Landon Collins grabs it. They're both fighting for it. And by the time the other guy might have had possession, his foot is out of bounds. But isn't that a turnover?
But here's the funny thing, and we'll go back to the jet call, because I watched that play 50 times, one play.
But the NFL's convinced they got it right.
But I can't, and I'm like, everybody says the same thing. Like, my wife watched it, and my wife goes, well, do you think that little bobble? I'm like, no, because he still has, he's holding it.
The NFL, to this, still insists
he's emphatic
that they got it.
They found, deep throat.
Yeah, they found a video from the ground, like a groundhog was underneath the ground. Took a video, freaking groundhog from Caddyshack.
And this guy is he's not saying being a dick about it. He really believes it too. And even they interviewed Pereira, Blandino, all the former guys, and they're like, there's no way that call should have been overturned.
No, but that's the problem, and so you have that going on as well. But as far as and you're right, the play is bad. I mean, listen, let's be fair. The play is so bad that folks, the Patriots essentially shut out the Falcons.
Yeah.
Nothing.
See, again, that's another tough...
Guys, do you understand? I'm going to say this because I know I'm old and I'm playing the old man card here. But I don't ever remember, unless they were just ravaged by injuries, back in the day that teams that were in the Super Bowl the next year be just as inconsistently bad as they are in the past 5. And you know how we know that is because a lot of the same teams would go year in and year out. So it's brutal watching these teams. You don't know what you're getting from week to week. You don't know. And that's including the Patriots at this point.
And that's the thing is, this was probably the most complete game I've seen the Patriots play all year.
Yeah.
Because they've been either getting close, they almost lost to the Jets, they almost, they lost to the Panthers at home, almost lost to the Texans at home, got destroyed by the Chiefs in the opening week of the season. This was probably the first game for New England that I've seen where they played a complete game from start to finish.
And look, there's a lot of things that need to change, but mostly it's just that these guys just look like they don't know what the hell is going on the field half the time. And the teams and you can always tell the teams that look like they do have been together for a long time. Like the Seattle defense knows what the hell they're doing because it's had the same 5 main guys for 5 years. So they all know what's going on, right? You see that with Tom Brady in that offense. It always kind of looks like it knows what it's doing, but he's had a lot of the same guys for years. With these guys where these teams that the Giants, these teams change 50% of their guys every year, and there's not enough time to get these guys into what's going on. It's insane. And I'm not saying hitting. That's not what I'm saying.
No, it's
just run plays.
It's just the quality of football has really gone down this year. I mean, there's just a lot of mediocre to below average teams.
And when I stop watching, it won't because somebody's kneeling or sitting and is
It's just because you
protesting
can't-
something. It's going to be because it's become unenjoyable because either the refs are screwing it up and controlling how the game goes, because you'll watch things in the first quarter that they don't call pass interference, that they do call pass interference in the fourth quarter in a huge spot where a guy's been getting away with it all game, so he thinks he can do it, and all of a sudden it's pass interference.
I mean, if you want to hear a great radio call, right, of the play, the Safarian Jenkins play,
Yeah, go listen to the
go listen
New
to
England
Scott
guy.
Go listen to Scott Zolak, who is a Patriot. He's been a Patriot, was a Patriot for life,
Oh,
basically,
my
as a
God.
player. And even he rips the referees like to
Destroy
the
them.
bitter end. I mean, like it's and the thing is, when you have bad officiating with bad play, it just becomes a bad product.
It's becoming brutal. It's becoming brutal. And here's the other thing the NFL has to worry about. The Major League Baseball product has been really good. Mm-hmm. The postseason's been kind of fun. You had the Yankees involved. The Dodgers are involved. You had big teams. The play wasn't bad. The play was pretty good. I mean, you had some sweeps, but like most of all, the games were kind of enjoyable. And like you're getting this dreck on Sundays, man. It's brutal.
Here's what I'll say real quickly about the Jets before we get to polar bipolar. You know, I didn't like the fact that they lost. I didn't like the fact they blew the game by They had a 2-touchdown lead, and then McCown throws that awful interception. But what we always keep forgetting is that they're just rebuilding. So they're going to have games like this
they
all
don't
the
know how
time.
to win yet.
They don't know how to win yet, and they don't know how to put teams away yet and everything.
And also,
But the funny thing is when you listen to, like, you read the articles or you listen to the sports
it's
shows.
like they should have gone 12-2.
Exactly. And, like, again, that's what infuriates me because this market, this media market, New York media market, they're a bunch of friggin' hypocrites because they're the first people to rip the team. Then the team does better than what they thought, so now they're talking playoffs. And if I had a nickel for every time I had heard it last week alone, I was like, this team is not a playoff team.
Well, yeah, but it also makes it impossible to actually do a proper rebuild, which makes what Cashman did so amazing.
You know, so the thing is that the Jets are putting the pieces together right
Yeah.
now. But here's the thing, and I was talking about this with a friend of mine at work, okay? Eventually, you have to set a date where you're like, okay, it's time to start seeing what we got with these kids,
Why?
okay? Because
They obviously don't like them. Like, right? I mean, they
you
obviously don't
know,
like them.
You don't know that yet.
I mean, the one
Now
kid
listen, a lot of
hasn't
them-
dressed.
Whoa,
He hasn't
Hackenberg?
dressed.
Yeah, but you knew that, though. You knew Hackenberg.
I mean, what the hell is the point? You know, I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think he's going to do it. I really don't.
I
The
mean,
Giants aren't going to do it either.
I mean,
And they
look,
should too.
That's my opinion. My
I
opinion
know.
is at this point, like, you have to say, because you're going into a game against the Falcons, a team that's better than you, even though they're not playing very well. Okay, they are better than you at the end of the day.
Yes, you should lose that
You
game.
still have to play the Chiefs. You have to play the Saints on the road, the Panthers, and all that stuff. So pretty much by like the next 2 weeks, I'll say. Okay, and that might even be pushing it. Okay,
No, because if they win the next 2 games by hook or by crook, I mean, listen, the Falcons aren't unbeatable.
you know,
If they
and
win the
they're
next 2 games, it's a different story, right? You got to go for the playoffs. You have to.
coming off a short week and then traveling 2 weeks in a row works against the Falcons. Then they got the short week against the Buffalo Bills at home. You know, like for the most part, the younger guys are playing. Like Adams and May are starting every game. Lee's playing. Williams. So they have a lot of younger guys that are playing right now. But eventually, you're going to have to figure out. Like, I mean, you said it before, and you hit the nail on the head. If this team goes 8-8 this year, then there's no point.
It's a wasted season.
It's a wasted season. So that's why I'm saying that you have to set a time where you say, okay, it's time to start gradually working these kids in a little bit more. Whether they do it or not is another story, but that's just my opinion on it.
I agree. And the other thing I'll say is the Jets win that game if they don't injure Cutler. As soon as Matt Moore came in that game, I was like, the Dolphins are probably going to win this game.
That was like when Mo Lewis injured Drew Bledsoe, and then we got the Tom
The
Brady.
NFL
era.
all hates you now. Enjoy it, you bunch of jerks.
Matty, time to play the game that's sweeping the nation.
Oh,
At
indeed.
least all 10 people that listen to this
Sure.
podcast.
Yeah, 8 to 10.
And my wife's cousin who listens to it 5 times a day.
Indeed.
It's time to play polar or bipolar. Here are our 10 topics of the week.
Let it breathe.
10 topics. Polar is you agree with it. Bipolar means you don't agree with it, and it does not reflect on people with bipolar disorder. That's why it's...
Yes. It's called the name, folks. Play
There
on
we
the
go.
name.
Maddie, number 1. Polar or bipolar? Acquiring Martavis Bryant from the Steelers won't make your team that much better.
Polar. It's agree, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it won't. Because, first of all, the guy's going to get suspended for smoking weed at some point, right? Just going to happen. And he's a problem. If you're a problem on the Steelers, which is one of those organizations that'll keep you around forever, you're a problem. And they're not going to keep you around for long. And guess what? You're not going. No, he's not going to make anybody better because he's a problem. And problems don't make teams better; they make them worse.
I agree. I would say he's definitely going to be. He wouldn't make a team better. He's only really a deep threat. He's like a Torrey Smith, only a little taller, I would say. But the fact is, at the end of the day, ripping Rupin is your own teammate is an interesting way, I guess, of getting a trade. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think he'll make your team that much better. In fact, like Matty said, and I agree, he might make the team actually worse.
Number 2, Sam Darnold is officially overrated.
I'm going to say bipolar. And the reason why I'm going to say bipolar is that I know he's having a rough year. I mean, he was bad. He was bad against Notre Dame on Saturday. But he's a quarterback. He can throw the football. And I think at this stage, that's still pretty valuable. So I don't really consider him bipolar. I don't consider him bipolar.
Well, you never know.
I don't consider him overrated yet. But he's getting there because he is turning the ball over quite a bit. And at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he stays in school.
All right.
Number 3, Matty, polar or bipolar? The Falcons have not gotten over their Super Bowl collapse.
Polar. That's agreed.
Yeah.
Polar.
You ask this every time.
I do. But I just like to do it now just to bug you. Absolutely, they haven't gotten over it. And well, it's twofold, right? They haven't gotten over the Super Bowl thing, and they haven't gotten over Kyle Shanahan being gone.
Do they miss Kyle Shanahan?
I think they do. That's a play calling thing. I mean, their offense should not be stagnant. They have too many good players on that team for that offense to be that stagnant.
I think with Sarkisian as the offensive coordinator, though, I think they just kept the same offense.
They did, but but there's a rhythm involved in it, right? It's different. It's not. It's like a catcher calling balls and strikes. Like, are you calling what the quarterback sees on the field? Are you in tune with that? And maybe this guy isn't. I mean, maybe, Sarkisian doesn't have the best history in the world. So, I mean, who knows what's going on? But something's going on. And part of it is definitely because they blew that lead.
Honestly, if Sarkisian were to get let go, you get this weird feeling that there's going to be, he got drunk to practice one day.
I don't think that's true. I think he's just making that up. Number 4, the touchdown celebrations are becoming more ridiculous by the week.
I'm going to say polar. I'm like, listen, I'm not going to lie.
Craig, get off my lawn.
I thought the Steeler thing was kind of funny, but geez, it took forever.
How are you not throwing a flag there?
And that's my point.
How is it that like Odell Beckham Jr. gets a flag for dancing too long, but that didn't get a flag?
I mean, that was like at least a 2-minute celebration.
It took forever.
I mean,
the only thing I thought was this is taking forever.
And I mean, but do you see what I'm getting at?
I do.
You're getting to the point where while it might be. It's becoming, to receivers, it might be beneficial to play better because then they could take a 5-minute break to dance in the end zone for a touchdown. It was funny. I'm not saying it wasn't, but for crying out loud, I mean, how is that not a flag for taunting? I mean, that's ridiculous.
No, it's not. It's too long. It should be like 30 seconds, not even 10 seconds.
Exactly. I mean, or
do
just
a little do a jig and be done.
I'll tell you what. Would it kill the freaking receiver to just give the ball back to the referee?
Well, they're never going to do that. So just put a time limit on and be done because that thing the other day was ludicrous.
All right, Matty, number 5, polar or bipolar. Kyle Shanahan is not doing as good of a job as everybody thinks he is in San Francisco.
Polar. Look at all these other coaches. Look at the Rams coach. Our team wasn't supposed to be good.
Look at the Jets.
Look at the Jets. Like, there are tons of teams out there that are overachieving right now. And you know what team's not overachieving? The 49ers. Now, they're playing hard for their coach, but he's a first-year coach on a 6-year contract. So, of course, they're playing hard for him because they know he's going to be there. And they want to be there, too, because they want to get paid. But at the same time, your offense sucks. You said this quarterback you loved the guy. Oh, my God. Brian, he's the best quarterback in the world. You said this to me. And you were wrong. And so suck it. Now you're losing. And you're not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better. And none of these quarterbacks in college seem to be great. So maybe it won't get better for a while. Number 6. It's time to take the Buffalo Bills seriously as a playoff contender.
I'm going to say polar. And I'm surprised I'm saying this, but they are playing very well for Sean McDermott. Now, a lot of that is also from being at home. But at the same time, I think there's a different atmosphere around there now. You don't have Rex there anymore. You have Sean McDermott. They seem to be buying in. The defense has been tremendous for them. Their offense isn't the greatest in the world, especially when you don't have Jordan Matthews, who's been hurt on and off all year. But you still have LaShawn McCoy. Still got a pretty decent offensive line. I think I would take them as a 6. I could definitely see it as a possibility moving forward. They've won some big games this year.
Is Tyrod Taylor still their quarterback?
He is still their
Then
quarterback.
I don't take them seriously.
You got nothing else?
Nope, that's it.
Go ahead.
Number 6.
Number 7.
Sorry,
that's
number
me.
6.
That's me.
Yeah. Come on,
Sorry.
get it together.
Matty, polar or bipolar? It will be tough to find a good manager to take over the Washington Nationals job.
Polar. Because as I said, you make one wrong move and you're fired. They fired Dusty Baker, who is
That
a
made no
universally loved manager and who actually was good for them. Now, Dusty's never good in the playoffs, but you knew that when you hired him. And what the hell did you think was going to happen when you get? You think all was going to change? Oh, Bryce Harper's on this team. It's going to change. Stop. Okay? You screwed the pooch, and then you fired him. Who are you going to get to do? Now, you're going to find a manager because there's going to be some guy who's going to take a job. But you're that guy? I would rent. Let me put it that way. Rent a place in the D.C. area. Don't buy. That's my advice.
I mean, like, the funny thing about the Nationals real quickly is, like, the same thing happened 2 years in a row. One of Matt Williams when he took Jordan Zimmerman out, and then when Baker took Scherzer out of a one-hitter.
Oh, the other thing, if you're the Nationals manager, don't take out your starting pitcher.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, let me ask you a question real quickly. Do you think that Bryce Harper has anything to do with it?
No.
Just because he's a free agent?
No.
Is this doubled there?
No. Okay, number 8. It's too early to panic about the New York Rangers.
I'm going to say bipolar. They don't look good at all. And I know it's really early in the season. I think they lost last night 4-1. They're 2-6-1 on the season. Lundqvist looks terrible in net to start the year. But at the same time, the Rangers are again a victim of underachieving players. Stepan was last year, and they traded him to Arizona. Now this year, it's Kreider again, and you have Nash, who's literally been non-existent. The only guy who's been scoring on a consistent basis for the Rangers is Mika Zibanejad. But outside of that, none of the guys on the team have really played well. The defense has played bad. Shattenkirk's been off to a really, iffy start. But at the end of the day, I mean, not that I expect them to be a first-place team, but they should be better than where they are, and they just look completely lost right now.
Sure, hockey.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Number 9, Matty, polar or bipolar? The Arizona Cardinals should have drafted a quarterback in April's draft.
Polar. Absolutely, they should have, because you have Carson Palmer, the oft-injured.
Not anymore.
Right. The oft-injured Carson Palmer. And so, yeah, they should have absolutely drafted a quarterback. They didn't. And now they're screwed because Carson Palmer's hurt again. And so now listen, they were screwed. They weren't going anywhere anyway. But now they're even screwed because now they don't have anything, right? So now you got to see this guy who we've seen play a bunch of times who sucks, and he's going to go out and they're going to lose. And they'll get a high draft pick, and then maybe they'll get a quarterback this year, but who knows?
But the thing is also is that maybe they have no choice but to draft a quarterback now because at this stage, what are you going to do?
Jerry Reese everyone thought Jerry Reese had no choice but to draft a left tackle. He didn't do that, did he? It's not always what you think.
Fair enough. Touché.
Number 10, the Knicks should look into acquiring Eric Bledsoe from the Suns.
I'm going to say bipolar. I don't really know what the Knicks' plan is. I always thought it was rebuilding. I don't think you rebuild with a guy like Eric Bledsoe. And at this stage in the game, I don't know what you're going to give up for him. I mean, you don't really have anything, right? You don't want to give up draft picks. You don't want to give up Kristaps Porzingis or Willie Hernan-Gomez. So outside of that, who do you have to give up for him? Because the Suns, not to say the Suns will take a king's ransom for the guy, but I mean, they have to give up something, right? So at this point, I would say...
Well, they were asking for Hernan-Gomez and Ntilikina, and the Knicks said no because they don't want to trade Hernan-Gomez, which I don't know why. You're playing him behind Kyle Quinn.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, like, if you're not going to play him, trade him. But if you're going to keep him, then play him. But don't play him 4 minutes a night.
Yeah, I mean, like, the whole point was, all I heard about in the offseason was how him and Porzingis were going to be the building blocks. And Hernan-Gomez was good enough last year to warrant that. But now, all of a sudden, he's now not in the rotation.
Maybe he can't play out of the triangle. Kidding. I'm just kidding.
So, no, I mean, it's really mainly because I don't think the Knicks have anything to offer the Suns for Eric Bledsoe. So I'd say 100% bipolar.
Agreed.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Polar Bipolar is over. You are listening to the Polar Opposites Radio Podcast. Check us out, as always, at polaropposites.podbean.com, as well as iTunes, as well as Spreaker. And we are also on TuneIn Radio.
Yes.
Thanks to Maddie finally downloading it.
That worked. Did it work? Did
yes,
check?
it did. There actually were a few episodes on there.
Okay,
I don't know
perfect.
if you did. I don't know.
It does it for me.
Okay.
I sign up. It's linked to the Spreaker page, and there you go.
All right,
All
awesome.
done.
It was there. But like you said, I think it said it was going to take a couple of days or something.
Yeah,
like that.
the other thing I'll say is that I've heard that The show on iTunes appears to be playing really fast.
Oh, it's great.
And that's not nothing I can do. I posted on Polar, I posted on Podbean, and then it gets posted there. If you're getting that, please direct message me, and I will forward that to iTunes and yell at them for you, and hopefully get the problem fixed.
And there you go.
All right. So we got a couple minutes before we're going to do closing time. Is there anything basketball you want to talk about at the beginning of the season? Do you care? Because let's be fair, right now, if you're a New York fan, you got nothing till spring training.
Pretty much.
Nothing.
Pretty much.
I mean, the Islanders will make the playoffs, but are they really?
There's no guarantee of that either. They really haven't been that great.
If they do, they're not
either.
going to the. They're not. And the Nets and the Knicks are brutal.
All right, I'll try to see if I can throw out some quick questions.
Do it.
Do you think the Minnesota Timberwolves will make the playoffs this year?
Yes.
As an 8?
Maybe even higher.
Maybe higher?
Yeah, some of those other teams might fall out.
Okay. Trying to think.
Basketball related. Yeah, let's do all NBA.
Well, what do we have? Well, with the Cavs, I know Derrick Rose is hurt.
Yes.
Wade is off to a bad
shocking.
Wade's off.
Hey, guys, Derrick Rose is
off
hurt.
to a bad start.
I wish I had a breaking news sounder because I would play it because that's breaking news.
Literally.
Yeah.
Breaking.
Brutal.
Look, it's right now for basketball. It's just really early. Do you have a pick for a worst team in the NBA right now?
I don't know. The Magic?
So I'm going to say the Suns. They've been really bad to start the year.
We're going to talk about them
We'll get
coming
that
up,
during
too.
closing time.
Brutal nonsense. But look, here's the NBA's problem, right? First of all, we all know that there's an East Coast bias when it comes to ratings and television, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all your best teams are out West. All your best teams are playing at 10 o'clock at night every night.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in the East Coast don't watch them.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't. You got to get up early in the morning. You get up at like 5 in the morning. You're not staying up till 2 watching basketball. You're just not.
Definitely
So that's a huge problem for them. The other big problem, too, is that you had Hayward get injured, so that doesn't kill the Celtics. I mean, the Celtics are going to make the playoffs because they have a good coach and they have a good team, and Kyrie Irving's good enough to make the playoffs. But is there any doubt that Cleveland, here's the thing, unless LeBron James is hurt and doesn't play, Cleveland is going to the finals, right? Now, that may be different in the West, but unless that is, that's going to be the East.
Well, Cleveland's stacked, and the thing is the Hayward injury was gruesome. That was just.
I didn't watch it. I can't. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, it's tough to watch. I mean, I don't know which one was tougher, that injury or the injury to that Maryland kid or Louisville
well,
kid.
I
when
was
he
watching
landed.
that live.
That was rough.
Terrible.
That was a tough spot. But look, I mean, right now we're only about 5 games into the season, maybe 3 or 4 games tops.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really tough to gauge the NBA. I mean, listen, teams are good, teams are bad. That's pretty much the best way. You already know the good teams because you know the Cavs, the Warriors, Spurs, and all that stuff.
And then you got teams like the Lakers that will be better but won't be great, and like teams like that.
Listen, teams will figure out Lonzo Ball to the point where he is going to hit a wall, right?
Well, also, I mean, Detroit's not been great. I mean, they didn't look great against the Knicks. I know they won the game, but the Knicks were up by 20 at the half.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not a great. That's the problem, man, is that there's no consistency. It's like the NFL to a certain extent. There's just not enough consistently good teams where you get consistently good games. There'll be great games throughout the year. There'll be fun games throughout the year, but it's not consistent. It's not, there's so many games. I mean, Craig, how many 20-point leads get blown in NBA games? Do you remember?
Sure.
I don't remember that happening.
No.
I mean, it happened, but it was a huge deal when it happened. Now it just happens every day.
I mean, listen, we already know at this point basketball's a bit unwatchable. I mean, there are just a lot
unless you watch 5 teams.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a Nets fan, Matt's a Knicks fan. I don't know how often you're watching the Knicks games all the way through, or
I mean, I watch, but I usually watch the first half, and then I just get annoyed.
I mean,
because they're not going to win.
See,
and actually, at a certain point, I don't want them to win.
Of course, because you want the high draft pick this year. I mean,
right.
That's of course. I mean, that's what the whole point of this thing was. So, Maddie, what do you say we could bring this show home? I've had enough of basketball.
Yeah, fair
enough.
enough.
Closing time. Closing time, as always, rounds out our podcast. We have 6 topics. Anything goes. All opinions vary. All opinions legal. All opinions matter. Maddie, did you hear about the viral meningitis outbreak within the WWE?
What?
Yeah.
They got to stop.
And if you want to see a funny picture, and I got to give my friend Keith props. So they had to replace one of the guys in the Shield because he had viral meningitis. Or he had viral, so he couldn't wrestle. So they replaced him with Kurt Angle.
Right, I heard about that.
And the Shield come through the crowd when they come through the aisleway. So they're really serious. And then you got Kurt Angle right behind them smiling, right? And my friend Keith sent me a picture, and it kind of looked like he he looked like a kid from the Make-A-Wish Foundation that just got his wish to walk down the aisle with the shield. If you ever see the picture is freaking priceless. Like, it's really, really funny. Like, when you look at it. All right, Maddie, here we go. Number 1. Teams move quickly to hire managers as the Red Sox named Astros bench coach Alex Cora as their next manager. The Tigers hired former Twins manager Ron Gardenhire as their next skipper. And the Mets, of course, hired Indians pitching coach Mickey Callaway to be their next manager. The Nationals, after another first-round exit in the playoff, as we just discussed, are now looking for a new manager after they fired Dusty Baker. Maddie, did each team hire the right man for the job, and where do the Nationals go from here?
Look, let's be fair, right? Nobody knows. Now, today, you know a little bit more than you ever did because a lot of managers are going by the analytics stuff. So it's not like you're more of a middle manager than you are, say, the manager of a team. It's not like when Joe Torre was managing the Yankees and, you know, he was just making decisions on the field, right? Joe Torre has a book he goes by. Yeah. And the same will be true for the Red Sox, and the same is true for the Mets, and the same is true for all these other teams. Everyone talks highly about Joey Cora. The thing about
Alex Cora.
Everyone talks highly about Alex Cora.
Well, Joey Cora is a good manager too.
But you know, the thing is that, like, there's a difference between being a bench coach and being a manager, especially being your first managerial job being in Boston, okay, which is a huge thing that you have to deal with the media every day and all that sort of stuff. So we'll find out if these are good hires. I mean, they all seem like good hires. I like Ron Gardenhire. He was always good for the Twins. I think the hire is good for the Mets. And I think Cora is going to be good for the Red Sox. If they don't win, they'll get fired. If they win, they'll keep their job. It's pretty simple. As far as the Nationals,
I mean, I don't.
Whoever takes the job, give it to them.
Here's the problem. At this stage, the managers that are left out there are not that good.
Well, you're going to have to get a bench coach or a hitting coach. It's going to have to be a Kevin Long type of guy. That's what it's going to have to be.
I agree with you. I mean, I think that, listen, I think the managers are all good hires in general. I think with Cora, the issue will be the players because I just feel like that team is too loose. I don't know, like, you know, they had it, if I didn't know any better, I think they had it easy under Farrell compared to Cora, who might come in with a little bit more of a disciplined attitude. You know, I've always liked Gardenhire. I think his time had just run out with Minnesota. They were just not a good team. They weren't really communicating at that point. As for the Nationals, I mean, just like you said, I mean, we talked about it already. The fact is it's going to be somebody desperate for a job because they just need a job.
Exactly.
So
number 2, it was another rough game for the Browns. They fell to the Titans 12-9 on Sunday. DeShone Kizer threw 2 more interceptions and was benched in the second half for the second time this season. According to Cleveland, Kizer was out at a bar late on Friday night, and they have video proof. Browns coach Hugh Jackson wasn't pleased to hear his QB was out late, and Kizer didn't deny being out at the bar until 1 a.m. on Friday night. When he was asked about it, Kizer says he was at the practice facility the next day and that he didn't want to talk about his personal life. Cleveland is now 1-22 since Hugh Jackson became head coach. Craig, did DeShone Kizer just ruin his chance to be the future QB of the Cleveland Browns?
I don't think he did. Look, he's a young kid. He made a mistake. I don't know if I like the fact he wasn't apologetic about it, but at the same time, he's at a bar Friday night. Players are players. Sometimes players just go out. I mean, like, I don't.
If you knew what the players did back in the 70s,
exactly.
80s, and 90s before social media.
Think about it like this, right? Joe Namath was a member of the Jets. He used to go out clubbing till 4 a.m. before game days.
Yeah.
And he'd come out and he'd still throw 3 touchdowns every week for the Jets. Players have lives outside of the team. So I'm not going to get on Kizer for being out at a bar. What we forget about DeShone Kizer is he's a freaking rookie. He's a third-round pick that has been thrusted into a starting job.
For a bad team.
Off of a preseason. Okay? So, in many ways, I'm going to throw some shade at Hugh Jackson on this one because you literally threw him out to the Wolves, which I guess is okay. It's trial by fire. Maybe he learns that way. But at the same time, you could have easily just gone with Brock Osweiler this year, see what Brock Osweiler can do, and let Kizer learn. Because here's the problem. Now going into the next draft, the Browns are going to think they have to draft a quarterback because DeShone Kizer sucks in their ways.
Yeah.
But in reality, he's a kid that's only played 7 games in his career. So in that sense, no, I don't think he did, but to the Cleveland Browns, he just might have.
Yeah, I mean, look, the problem I have here is the pulling him, the benching him. Like, just let him suck. Like, that's the thing. What's he going to learn by sitting on the half for a half? Side on the half for a half and not do it, whatever. What's he going to learn? Just let him go out. He's going to make mistakes. You're going to lose. Okay, that's the way life is for him right now.
But what worries me,
benching him does no good to me.
But here's the problem with the Browns: if you telling me that Kevin Hogan is better starter than Deshaun Kaiser,
then you got a huge.
Have a huge problem.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, and just to sum up, really about Hugh Jackson, I saw this in the paper the other day. Hugh Jackson, the Titans got called for pass interference or something which would have knocked them back 15 yards. It was a 3rd and 1, right? Hugh Jackson declines the penalty. So instead of repeating the down, it goes to 4th and 1. So the Titans went for it, and the Browns went offsides.
Of course.
That just sums up.
That's such a Browns thing to happen in life.
Number 3, a Halloween costume of Anne Frank was recently pulled from a costume website after sparking social media outrage. The costume made for children featured a beret, a navy shirtwaist-style dress with buttons. Not what I really want to hear right now. A felt bag and a felt destination tag sewn to the dress collar. The caption for the costume explains how your child can play the role of a World War II hero and also describe Frank as an inspiration to us all. Are people being too sensitive regarding this costume?
No, they're not, actually. and I'll tell you why. A costume...
It's Halloween.
I understand, but there's a time and a place, right? And Halloween is not the time to put on an Anne Frank costume and go asking for candy. It's just not. And I understand why people might be like, they're being too sensitive. But, like Halloween costumes are cartoon characters and stuff like that. Like, you don't dress up as somebody who died in the Holocaust as a Halloween. You just don't. It'd be like you don't dress up your kid as Hitler for Halloween. Like, there are just certain things, right? Like, as a society, right? There are just certain things when you hear, it just has a bad feel to it, right? You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm going to go as Halloween as a kamikaze pilot, and I'm going to be in Hawaii while I do it. Like, it's not a good idea, right? Like, it's just not. So stop trying to be inventive and just keep Halloween costumes what they are. Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk, ghosts, rock bands.
With all due respect, what kid would sit there and say, I really want to be Anne Frank?
People are weird.
Halloween.
Listen, kids are weird.
Listen, that's not even one of the worst costumes. One was freaking Oscar Pistorius, right? The Blade Runner who killed his wives. That
guy's a Hollywood. Is this Halloween? Is this like the most un-PC Halloween costumes ever sight?
To be very blunt, the most disturbing Halloween costume I saw was a T-shirt that said "Welcome to Las Vegas" and had bloodstains on it.
Yo, but that's what people do.
Man.
Yo, but there were
T-shirt
sites. But T-shirts.
That's not cool.
Yo, Craig, there were T-shirts like that after 9/11.
I'm gonna see if I can find it while we keep doing this.
All right, we're gonna move on. But I'll say this: no, it's not. No kid should dress up like frickin' Anne Frank for Halloween. It's not the proper time to pay homage to a World War II veteran. It's just not. Number 4, the Phoenix Suns have fired head coach Earl Watson after the team started 0-3. Watson was named the interim head coach during the 2015-2016 season after the team fired Jeff Hornacek and signed him to a 3-year deal, even though he finished that season with a 9-24 record. The Suns lost by 48 points on opening night to the Trailblazers, which prompted Eric Bledsoe to tweet, quote, "I don't want to be here. Jay Triano will take over on an interim basis." Craig, is Watson or the organization to blame for the dumpster fire of a basketball team in Phoenix?
Oh, it's the organization as far as I'm concerned. The thing is, while Watson is, I don't know if Watson's a good coach or not, but the fact is the organization is not giving him the players he needs. This team feels like it's been in a rebuild for 10 years. It's felt even longer than that.
Since they traded Steve Nash,
it
just feels like that.
But again, it just becomes like one of these things where you just don't understand what the hell they're trying to do. And the thing is, like, I know they're drafting high players, and I'm sure Devin Booker, Dragan Bender, didn't they draft Josh Jackson?
Yeah.
The kid from Kentucky this year. But the fact is when you don't give the coach a team to win, how do you expect? They're going to lose. They're going to lose by 48 points and 50 points and everything.
Also, he went 9-24, and then you hired him to a new contract. Maybe that should have been the first sign indicator.
Yeah.
So, you want to blame him, fine, but you can't tell me that there's a coach. And yes, there are coaches that would have made that team better. Sure, there's always that. But there's not coaches that would have. I mean, I just don't see what firing after 3 games does. That's my problem, right? Isn't that the biggest thing?
Sure.
Like, after 3 games, then why'd you even go into the season with him? It makes no sense. Oh, my God.
He's called the Blade. I just showed Matt the picture.
It's called the Blade Gunner. It actually comes with socks that look like the things you run on. He's got a running suit that says Blade Gunner, and it comes with a gun.
That is
People
disturbing.
are wrong.
Maddie, number 5 and 6
Wrong.
are two-part questions about the same topic.
Yes.
And that is a topic of MLB possible expansion. So here we go. Number 5. The possibility of MLB expanding to 32 teams is picking up steam, with Montreal, Charlotte, Portland, and Mexico City as the leading contenders for a new franchise. Which, by the way, none of those cities, to me, work for a baseball
What do you
team.
mean?
I don't think any of those cities would be great for a baseball team.
Portland would be great for a baseball team.
Right?
Portland is good. They support their soccer team real well. They'd be really good.
If
They
the
support the Trailblazers. They'd be good.
If the league does expand to 32 teams, the schedule will most likely be altered, and instead of 162 games, teams will play 156. But the format would provide for an off day every week and would allow the season to begin on a weekend. While the new schedule would drop 6 games from each team, revenue will be made up due to a major reduction in travel costs. Maddie, does baseball really need to expand when most teams hardly sell out games anyway?
I mean, look, if the new revenue from the less travel makes ticket prices less, then go ahead and do it. Okay? Because that's the problem with fans not going to the game. It's not the amount of games, it's not the travel for that. It's the fact that it costs a lot of money for them to go. So if that savings is then going to be put on to the fans, then I'm all for it. As for expanding, I mean, like, let's be fair, right? Like, there's not enough good players to go around now. How are you going to field 2 more teams? I mean, let's be fair, right? You had more teams finish under 500 than above, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think you did. Or at 500 and below than you did above. There's not enough players now to have good teams. So, no, I wouldn't expand. If they are, because they're going to, because all these leagues are money-grubbing whores, so they will expand. And I will tell you that the 2 places they should expand, they should go to Charlotte and they should go to Portland. Screw you, Montreal. You don't get a team. You didn't support the team the first time, you don't get the team the second time. And I'm not putting a team in Mexico City because I can't guarantee their safety right now.
That's
So
actually
I'm not,
very.
I'm not, and I'm not saying that to be mean towards Mexico. That's not what I'm saying.
You can't.
But I can't, and I can't do that to them. So I'm sorry about that. What I would say is this: the one thing I think would be good is with Portland, it would be a natural rival with Seattle, which I think is what Seattle's missing. Right? Mm-hmm. Their natural rival right now doesn't really exist. It might be the Oakland A's, but that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So you'd have a natural rival there. Charlotte would have a natural rival with Atlanta, which would be nice to have. And so I think that those 2 cities would do the best. Plus, I think baseball would work in North Carolina more than it would in Montreal.
No, I agree. I mean, at this point, I can't put another team in Montreal after it was just a disaster.
Yeah,
and then they just got
F
to the
you.
point after they got to the point where they're just trading guys as soon as these guys hit their peak, and they were just starting over. You got to put them in a spot that they want to win. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, you go to stadiums, they're half empty most of the time, except maybe for Yankees, Red Sox, or Mets, Yankees, or whatever. But I just think having 2 more bad teams for a while is just not going to do anything good for Major League Baseball.
Unless you're going to make it so that the decreased travel, which is a bump in revenue, is going to then trickle down to us at the ticket price.
Okay.
If you do that, I'm okay.
Okay.
If you don't do that, I'm not okay. Number 6. Should expansion go through, there will most likely be a complete realignment of the divisions. Gone will be the AL and NL East, West, and Central, and replaced with 4 divisions of 8 teams, each labeled East, North, Midwest, and West. Under this realignment, the Mets and Yankees would be in the North Division and would play each other 12 times every season, as well as the other teams in their division, which would also include Boston, Cleveland, and Toronto, just to name a few. As for the remaining 24 teams that wouldn't be in their division, they would only play those teams 3 times each year. Craig, do you like the idea of realignment of the divisions?
Absolutely not. This is, first of all, the Mets and Yankees division will be brutally tough.
Yo, because it's the Yankees, it's the Red Sox, it's Cleveland, it's Toronto, it's the Mets, it's Detroit,
Minnesota, and this is on the contingency that Montreal gets a team. So
right?
It'll be
Montreal.
Okay,
that's effing brutal, man.
Okay, there's no way the Mets will beat the Yankees a certain number of times. Boston playing Boston 12 times. These teams are all in contention.
Yeah,
every year.
4 out of the 6 playoff teams. No, 5, 4.
Boston, 4. Cleveland, Minnesota. So you have 4 teams out of the 8 already that were playoff teams last year.
Yeah.
Now here are the rest of the divisions real quickly. In the East, this would be Atlanta, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Miami, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, and Washington.
I mean, that's a terrible division.
Okay.
But Atlanta, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Miami, Philadelphia, Tampa Bay, all Pittsburgh, and all finished under 500 last year.
It's terrible. Okay, then you have the Midwest, the Cubs and the White Sox, the Rockies, Astros, Royals, Brewers, Cardinals, and Rangers.
That's a decent division.
And in the West, you'd have the Angels, the Diamondbacks, the Dodgers, the A's. If a team is placed in Portland, they would be out west. San Diego, San Francisco, and Seattle. I think it's a terrible idea.
It's absolutely a terrible idea, and the reason it's a terrible idea is because you have rivalries that you would no longer have. The Yankees, a world where the Yankees and the Orioles are not in the same division is lunacy. I'm sorry. Listen, I can deal with Tampa Bay being taken out. They've only been here, but Toronto, you're going to take Toronto out of the East? No, Toronto's in there.
Toronto's in there. Baltimore's
but it'd be Baltimore. I mean, like, you're talking about 50, 60, 70 years of just history just gone.
Yeah.
Just gone. And
for the sole purpose of giving Montreal another team. That's like that. I really think that's where it's going. I think it's going to be Montreal.
It shouldn't be, but they want another team in Canada, and so, that's probably what they're going to do. The biggest problem with this whole thing, though, is that, 8-team divisions is a bad idea. First of all, how are you going to structure the playoffs? So you're going to have a division winner. That's 4 teams, right? And then how many spots do we have now in the playoffs? What do we have? We have, 10 spots, right? Was it 3 divisions and 2 wild cards? So you'd have 3 divisions and 2 wild cards, right? Well, it would just have to be best record, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, it would just have to be. So you would have the 4 division winners, and then what would you have, 4 wild card teams?
Yeah, it would be too many teams. It would take forever.
But also, what you have now is you have a lot of teams still in it till the end of the year. Under this, tons of these teams would have been out of it in the first half, and a lot of them weren't, because they would have been in divisions that they wouldn't have been able to win. Think about it this way. The Yankees don't make the playoffs under this thing, whatever it is. They just don't. I mean, it's insane. Listen, I understand, and you got to figure out a way to do it. What I would do is go back to unbalanced leagues and go back to the old way we did it. We don't play interleague every day, and just go back to that, where you had 16 teams in one league and 14 in another, and there you go, right? And that's it used to be the NL was 16 and the AL was 14. So go back to that, do something, but don't do this. Don't do this. Because all you're going to do, first of all, you're going to make it so that Boston, Cleveland, New York, or Toronto, which is a big market, isn't going to be in the playoffs when they would have been if it would have been the old way.
And the thing is, it's just overkill playing the Yankees 12 times, the Red Sox and Yankees playing each other 12 times, the Mets and the Red Sox playing each other. I mean, that division's going to get pulverized because it's going to be, every game is going to be tough.
Brutal.
There won't be an easy mark on the schedule. There never will be.
Nope.
So in that sense, I mean, this is a terrible idea, but I don't know what the other options are in the event that they get 2 other teams.
The good thing is we have a couple years for this, right?
They're not going to do it right away.
In the works, so we're talking at least 5 years before this has even begun. But it's not a good idea. It's just not a good idea.
And with that, Polar Opposites is officially over. And this episode of Polar Opposites is over, and we'd like to thank everybody for listening. Check us out again at polaropposites.podbean.com, as well as iTunes, as well as Spreaker. And on TuneIn Radio. You happen to do the Spreaker part so no one knows now.
Spreaker.com.
Right? And TuneIn Radio as well. We are working on some other options that we're going to figure out.
Maybe live, we could take calls.
We're going to start to take. We're working on something where we may be able to do a live show. So we'll get to more info as we get it. But again, one more time, polaropposites.podbean.com, iTunes, Spreaker.com, and TuneIn Radio. And follow us on Twitter at PolarOpposites1. Enjoy the games, enjoy the week, enjoy life, and we will talk again next week.
Bye.